concept of certificate. So we'll actually be talking tonight about 3 different graduate certificate options. We will be talking, I will be talking about the school social work certificate. Dr. Laura Taylor's joining us tonight. She's going to be talking about 2 other graduate certificate options that are available now at the University of Memphis. So I'm actually going to share my screen, and Dr. Taylor is actually going to start us off tonight talking about the other 2 certificates. So let me pull up my screen here. All right.
Dr. Ellswick, will I be able to advance the slides, or will you have to do that?
Might have to do it, because I think even if I share my access, I don't think you can still, I don't think you have the ability to slide share. So you'll just have to tell me when you're ready to advance.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Laura Taylor, and I am a professor in the graduate program. And like Dr. Ellswick mentioned, I am the coordinator for 2 of the certificate programs that we have, our graduate certificate in clinical social work, and then our interdisciplinary graduate certificate in substance abuse. You can advance to the next slide. And so what I'm going to talk about really briefly is why we developed the certificates and the pathways to obtaining one or both of the certificates. You can advance. This is just my contact information in case any of you need to reach out to me via email, and or if you needed to contact me via phone. But email actually is the best way to get in touch with me. Okay. So the purpose of the clinical social work certificate, it was really designed to meet the needs of students who who have a strong interest in working in either having a private practice at some point post-graduation, who are interested in working in community mental health, integrated health settings, primary care, or other types of agencies where direct practice via therapy is provided. You can advance to the next slide. And so what the certificate offers is an opportunity for students to increase their knowledge of clinical process and technique, to learn a little bit more in depth about theory and practice. So you're learning all of these in a lot of the core courses that you have to take that are requirements for the MSW, but getting the certificate just allows you to really pursue electives, as well as one of your required courses, taking that course that really deepens your knowledge a little bit more about how we practice clinically with individuals, families, and groups. You can advance. So for the certificate in clinical social work, it requires 12 credit hours, and you have the option to choose from 4 of the following courses. As you'll see, most of the courses listed are electives, with the exception of Social Work 7028. That's a practice course that you'll all take in your 2nd year. Also, I want to mention that Social Work 7948, that's Social Work Clinical Process and Technique, that is currently only offered in the spring semester only right now. That may change, but I do want to make you aware that 7948 is only offered in the spring semester. Okay, you can change to the next slide. The next certificate that I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about both certificates up front, I should have mentioned that, because the requirements for obtaining both are pretty much the same. But the next certificate that we have is our interprofessional certificate. And that was designed for students who are interested in working with individuals who are experiencing substance use disorder. Those of you who may want to work in like a co-occurring setting or any type of mental health center, hospital, child welfare, correctional facility, employee assistance, or even in private practice. You can advance the slide. And so again, as you all know, or you may not know, opioids, marijuana, and alcohol are 3 of the top substances that are abused in the state of Tennessee. There are a lot of different initiatives that have been developed in the state of Tennessee to address substance use disorder. So it just made sense that we developed a certificate that can, again, deepen knowledge and practice of students who are interested in working with this population. You can advance the slide. So there are 12 credit hours that have to be completed for the certificate in substance abuse. You have, unlike the previous certificate, for this certificate, there's one required course that you must take, and that's Social Work 7949. And it's our screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment. So in that course, you learn how to initially screen an individual who comes in for services, how to do some brief intervention, and then how to refer them out for more intensive or long-term care options. And then in addition to taking Social Work 7949, there are 3 elective courses that you can take. And because this is an interprofessional certificate that was designed, it was a collaboration actually between social work, Department of Counseling, and also the Department of Psychology. You can take 3 courses across, you can take any of the 3 courses. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a social work course that you want to take. With this, of course, you got to take 7949, but if you wanted to take the alcohol, drug, and abuse services that's offered in counseling, you can take that, or you can take any of the 4 psychology courses as well. But just know, again, you are required to take 7949 and then 3 of the other choices below that. You can advance to the next slide. So for both certificate programs, the graduation requirements, it's the same as in the graduate program. You need to have an average grade of 3.0 or higher for your 12 credit hours. And you cannot earn more than 1 credit hour where you get a C or C plus or C minus. You can advance. And the certificate programs are available to current MSW and DSW students, as well as any post-MSW professionals. You can advance. So if you're interested in applying, one of the first things that you're going to do, if you're a current MSW or DSW student, is that you're going to apply through the graduate school for admission into the certificate program. And this is true even if you are admitted into another degree program. You have to apply for the graduate certificate with the graduate certificate application. And there's a hyperlink that I have in some directions that I can send you, as well as in this PowerPoint. I think you should be able to click it, even if it comes through as a slideshow. Yeah, you should be able to click on that link and it'll take you directly to that page. Of course, you'll sign in with your U of M credentials, and then you'll search for either the clinical social work certificate or the interprofessional certificate in substance use disorder. You can advance to the next slide. And so the requirements are, you have to, of course, again, apply for a graduate certificate. You have to submit a resume, an official transcript, and a short essay. And the short essay has to be 1 to 2 pages where you're sharing why you're seeking a certificate in either clinical social work or substance use disorder based on the certificate that you're interested in. And we ask that you please include a brief biographical statement and any relevant academic, internship, volunteer, or work experience that speaks to your interest in either the clinical social work certificate or the substance use disorder certificate. And you'll also need 3 letters of recommendation. Now, if you are a current MSW or DSW student right now in the program, you do not have to resubmit your GRE scores. You do not have to resubmit your transcript or your letters of recommendation. We can pull those from your initial application into either the MSW or DSW program, so you can skip those sections of the application. The deadlines for both certificates, if you want a fall semester start, it would be May 31st. If you want a spring semester start, it would be November 30th. So if any of you are looking to start one or both of the certificates in the spring, then make sure that you start this process and have everything completed by November 30th. You can advance to the next slide. And I'm not sure if we have anyone in attendance who is already a graduate of the program. But for anyone who's a post-MSW graduate, if you're interested in pursuing the certificate, we have a hyperlink where you would apply for graduate admissions, and you would apply as a non-degree seeking student. And for any post MSW or DSW professionals who are interested in one or both of the certificates, again, you need to submit complete your graduate application as a non-degree seeking student, submit your resume, and we need an official transcript, and again, a short essay, 1 to 2 pages, telling us why you're seeking a certificate in either clinical social work or substance use disorder. And you need 3 letters of recommendation, and the deadlines are the same. If you want a spring start, it's November 30th. And if you want a fall start, it's May 31st.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The information about non-degree seeking is incorrect. Your degree seeking, you're seeking a certificate. So you are seeking a credential. So you're not non-degree seeking. So for anyone who's watching this later, so for anyone who's watching this later, you're not considered non-degree seeking. You're seeking a certificate, and that does mean that if you are interested in applying for financial aid, you can do so as long as you register for 6 hours a semester just for being in this program.
Okay, and that's for anyone who's a postgraduate.
Correct, because the people who are currently in an MSW or DSW, can you also use that as they're also in that program, and also, they are able to get financial aid through both options. And I don't think the GRE is required, as someone just said in the chat, because it's waived if you submit a writing sample for the MSW or Praxis scores.
Okay, thank you for that correction. You can advance the slide. And then so before you graduate, of course, there's a candidacy form that you have to complete. There's also a candidacy form that's required for the certificate. And again, it's hyperlinked where you can just click on that. It'll take you to the site where you would fill out the candidacy form, and you will list the 4 classes that you completed for the certificate. You will list the semester in which you completed the course and the grade that you obtained for the course. And because more than likely you will be completing your candidacy form prior to graduation or receiving your certificate, for any class that's required for one of the certificates, you would just put IP for in progress, because you won't have a grade for that course. So you list the course, the semester you're taking it, and then you put IP for in progress if you have not yet received your grade for the course. Okay, you can advance the slide. And that's it. Should I go into questions, or Dr. Elzo, do you need to present and then we go into questions?
I think it's okay to go ahead and take questions for these 2 specific ones.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I've already taken all 4 of the electives apparently for the clinical.
Wow. Yeah.
So what, like you said, a spring start or a fall start, does that matter? Is that, I mean, I'm not graduating till May of 2023 anyway, but I've already completed all 4 of the courses.
So I guess we could have, and Dr. Lee Barnes, you could tell me if I'm correct. You could complete the application process, and then you'll go ahead and also complete the candidacy form. Okay. Is that correct, Dr. Neely Barnes?
Yeah, I agree with that. So go ahead and complete the application, and then in spring, you'll complete both candidacy forms. And so the MSW candidacy form will have exactly the 60 hours or 37 hours if you're advanced standing for that degree. The candidacy form for your certificate would only have the 12 hours. I think all of them are 12 hours, right? Or any of them 15?
No, none of them are 15. They're all, well,
okay.
Yeah. 12.
So the certificate candidacy form will just have the 12 hours that count towards the certificate on it. And they get routed differently because Dr. De La Vega is the MSW program coordinator. So the MSW one gets routed to her after your advisor. The certificate one gets routed to Dr. Taylor. If it is the substance abuse or the clinical one, it gets routed to Dr. Ellswick if it's the school one.
So Catherine, if you're interested in doing that, reach out to me via email and we can set up a meeting and then we can get that process started for you.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. I'm sorry.
I have a question, sorry. For the clinical certificate, I'm a graduate student and I have my LMSW. I'm trying to see how would that pretty much further my career if I do the clinical certificate. I'm also interested in the substance abuse, but I wanted to kind of just ask that question regarding the clinical certificate.
Good question. So again, any of the courses that we offer, the goal is that it would deepen any of your knowledge. It would deepen your knowledge about practice, essentially, and about theory and how to work with certain populations. We've gotten a lot of feedback from postgraduates that they wish we had more electives that we offered when they were a student. There weren't as many as we have now, or they wish they had taken certain electives that we offer, like treatment of trauma, because they're working in a setting where they're encountering a lot of clients who present with a history of complex trauma. So that's the goal for the courses. Is if you decide to pursue the certificate, you may be selecting courses in which you may have a specific interest that may deepen your knowledge and your practice for that particular population.
Okay, and what would be the, an estimated completion time if I wanted to take on both certificate programs during the same semester? Is it a 1 year completion, or what would the completion time look like?
If I'm remembering correctly, it would probably take like 2 to 3 semesters, depending on how you schedule your courses or the availability of the courses.
Oh. Okay, and are the courses offered online or in
a lot of the courses, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. A lot of the courses are offered online.
Okay, perfect.
I'll add to the conversation about online. So I have just submitted the paperwork to Global to make the clinical certificate part of Global. I don't know when we're going to do the paperwork with the substance abuse one, but we are planning to run the expert class next fall online because we attempted to run it face-to-face and it did not make. We're not going to run it in spring or summer because there's a lot of demand for the social work 6061, that substance abuse course. There's a lot of demand. So we need to run that in spring and in summer. Those will fill up, but we will attempt to run the expert class again in the fall, and we will put it online.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the school social work graduate certificate. And so this is the graduate certificate if you're interested in pursuing a career in school social work. So working in public schools, supporting children, youth, and adolescents. So we're going to review the 2 pathways to pursuing the school social work graduate certificate. What's the purpose of the school social work graduate certificate? We're also going to discuss how you would maintain the licensure and the certificate, really more the licensure, because it's interesting. This is a certificate, but it can also lead to the school social work license in the state of Tennessee, and then also discussing the state requirements for licensure in the state. Here's my contact information, how you would get in touch with me. I am not in the same building with the other faculty. I'm actually in the FedEx Institute for Technology. However, probably the best way to contact me, this is my actual landline on campus, but if you email me, that might be the best way to connect with me because I am between Park campus and main campus from time to time because I'm across kind of 2 projects and 2 programs on campus. So what is a school social worker? Really, the focus of school-based practice and school social work is to really support the social emotional learning needs and the mental health and behavioral health needs of children in schools. The focus is to really support those mental and behavioral health needs so children can be productive and function well in the academic setting, so they can get the academic needs met so that they can be productive citizens beyond the educational setting. We focus on providing supportive services in schools. The focus is to provide those specific developmental and social emotional supports in the school setting. So we actually provide those supports to children in the public schools. We do pull-out programming where children are in their academic setting. We might do push-in programming, which means that we might be doing bully prevention and suicide prevention in the program in the actual classroom settings, but we're also pulling them out and doing actual therapeutic intervention. So CBT programming, TFCBT, or group-based interventions. And so it's all to enhance the learning environment of children. In addition to that, we work in a multi-systemic model of intervention, which means it's not just providing direct service just to the child. We're also supporting the teacher in the classroom. We're also supporting the administrators in the building, looking at policies, educational policies that might be in place that might be impacting the child's ability to be supported. So, you know, are there push-out policies in place? Or are there too many suspensions and expulsions happening? Are there too many rigid policies that are impacting the children? Is there a lot of systemic racism or social injustices that are happening in the educational system? And that's part of our job too, is to identify those and support the administrators and maybe readjusting those policies or looking at changing some of those policies. We also support the caregivers in advocacy, educational advocacy, and school law. And so when we think about how do I become a social worker, there is a specific route. There is an educational component. You can't just go hang up a shingle and say you're a school social worker. In the state of Tennessee, there is a licensure process. There are standards of practice that we have to follow. And there is a specific licensure track through the Department of Education at the state level. So the state standards include understanding social, emotional, cultural, and economic issues that impact children, also understanding the needs of students and risks due to disability, economic conditions, family disruption that might impact their education. We also serve as a liaison between the school and the home environment. We also understand what needs children have and focus on how to support those needs. We also perform case management functions as well as direct therapeutic interventions, also understanding school law and federal and state laws and how those impact children and why they're put in place to support children. We also want to make sure that we're focusing on specific standards of practice, because that is how the state has decided what licensure means in our specific state. Now, we'll talk about that in a minute. There are 50 states in the United States, but not all states recognize licensure in school social work as an actual licensed entity. So in the state of Tennessee, those are our standards of practice. But in Arkansas, there is no license. And so they have no standards of practice in school social work. And so here in the state of Tennessee, we focus on the Tennessee standards of practice. And that is how we have developed our graduate certificate and our licensure program. And so when we look at the graduate certificate, we're focusing on current MSW students and postgraduate students, just like the other two graduate certificates that we discussed do. So if you're a current MSW student, you will take specific coursework while you're here, and you will not only finish the graduate certificate requirements, but you will also be completing the licensure requirements in the state of Tennessee to become licensed as a school social worker. If you're coming back as a post-MSW, you will be completing the graduate certificate requirements in addition to the licensure requirements in the state of Tennessee to become a school social worker. You will be directly working in a school-based practice in the state of Tennessee. So this does not lead you to an LCSW. This is actually a license through the Tennessee Department of Education, not through the health-related boards. Okay, sometimes people get confused that this leads you directly to an LCSW. These are two different types of licensure. Okay. So Also, sometimes people get confused that these are two separate processes, that you're getting a graduate certificate and then you have to complete a whole nother process to be licensed as a school social worker. When you complete this graduate certificate, you're also completing the process to be licensed in the state through the Tennessee Department of Education as a school social worker. It will give you the ability to work in a public school in the state of Tennessee as a school social worker. So by completing all the academic requirements, you're completing both of those pieces at the same time. So in the state of Tennessee, that is a Tennessee State Department of Education license. They also refer to it as a professional school service personnel license. Sometimes you might hear people reference it that way. It is the same type of license that a teacher educator gets. So it's through the Tennessee Department of Education. It is a teaching license. It just happens to be a professional service license, just like a school psychologist or a speech pathologist has. It's the same type of license through the DOE. It gives you the ability to work in a public school setting only. And so you would not necessarily be able to work in a mental health setting. It does not give you the ability to work, in a private practice. This only gives you the license to be able to work in a public education setting. And in the state of Tennessee, most public schools are requiring you to be a licensed school social worker in order to work in those specific settings. Like if you wanted to go work for Shelby County Schools, they would not hire you if you did not have the school social work license. So the two pathways we mentioned, you can be a current MSW student and complete the program, or you can be a post-MSW student and complete the program. The admission requirements is the graduate certificate in school social work can be completed concurrently while you're an MSW student. You would, like Dr. Taylor said, even though you've already been admitted to the MSW program, you actually have to be in good standing. It is a 12 credit hour program. You do have to apply to the graduate school, and you do have to indicate that you are seeking a graduate certificate in school social work. We do have some students that get confused because there are three options. There is the clinical graduate certificate, there is the substance abuse graduate certificate, and there's the school social work graduate certificate. So make sure you're choosing the one that you're really wanting to obtain. Some people are choosing one thinking that that's the one that they're wanting. You have to really make sure you're choosing the graduate certificate you're attempting to pursue, okay? We can get that corrected on the back end, but just make sure you're really choosing the one that you're trying to attempt to pursue. So you do have to reapply to the graduate school, and you have to, you're going back to apply for the graduate certificate in school social work, or whichever one you're choosing. Once you've been accepted to the graduate school seeking that graduate certificate in school social work, you will let us know that you have been admitted by the graduate school and been accepted, and then we can start to clear your permits for the courses that you're going to be admitted into. Now, for the graduate school social work certificate, many of these courses you're already going to be taking because they're part of your graduate programming anyway. You're going to be taking field experience in your MSW program anyway. But in your field experience for the school social work graduate certificate, you have to complete your field experience in a school setting, in a public school setting, in order for it to count for your graduate school social work certificate. So you have to make sure you're contacting your field director early on and let them know you're pursuing the graduate certificate in school social work and you need to be placed in a school setting. Because if you do not get a field placement in a school setting, you will not be able to be licensed in the state. You cannot finish the certificate out. You also have to complete the school social work class 6937. Currently, we only offer this class in the summer and fall semester. So just make sure you're thinking that out as you're completing your elective courses. You do also have to complete social work 7016 or social work 7017. and both of those are part of your curriculum anyway. And you must also complete either SPED 6112, which is functional behavior assessment, which is a SPED class that's only offered online currently, which a lot of students like that class because you're actually going to have to do functional behavior assessments as part of your work in the school system. Or you can take SPED 7000, which is Introduction to Exceptional Learners. Because this is a license through the Department of Education, that's one of the reasons you are taking education courses. You will be working with children that are exceptional learners. And so these courses will help to prepare you with working with children that have exceptionalities, whether it's behavioral exceptionalities or academic exceptionalities.
We'll need to update that to social work 7028 because 7016 is no longer being offered. So
okay.
7028 uses the same textbooks, I believe. And
okay.
so it would be appropriate. And I'll check if the grad catalog has been updated appropriately.
Okay. Yep. We'll make that adjustment then. Once you've taken all the coursework, you do have to complete an application for the Department of Education here at the University of Memphis called the TEP application, the Teacher Education Program application. The TEP program is actually the program that processes your application for licensure through the Department of Ed in Nashville. So you will click on that link and you will complete the application. And the application may require you to take the praxis exam if your undergraduate GPA falls below the threshold that they need you to have. So TEP sets those standards. We don't set those standards. Their GPA requirements are listed on their website. If for some reason your undergraduate GPA falls below their threshold, they will let you know, and they may say, we need you to take the praxis exam. Sometimes they'll let me write a waiver letter that will not make you have to take the praxis exam because you're a graduate student, and really we're asking for a licensure at the graduate level and not the undergraduate level. So sometimes they'll let me write a waiver letter, but you will complete the application and then they'll walk you through that process. You also have to complete a school social work application. For me, that application is just saying you have completed all of your coursework. It looks at all of the state standards for school social work practice. You have to fill in a narrative that shows me and the State Department of Education that you understand the school social work standards and you're able to pull from the courses you've completed knowledge and information about those specific standards of practice. And you can show us how you learned that information from your field experience, from activities and assignments in your courses, and you're prepared and knowledgeable to do school-based practice in Tennessee. Once you complete the application and I've reviewed it and give you feedback, then you will complete the graduate certificate candidacy form. And again, like Dr. Neely Barnes said, that's a separate candidacy form from your graduate candidacy form that you send to Dr. De La Vega. I will sign that candidacy form. And then that's pretty much it. And once I complete that, the TEP completes their portion of the application. Then they send all of that information to the state, and you will actually be licensed in the state of Tennessee to provide services to children in public education. You'll be licensed as a school social worker in the state of Tennessee, and you will have a certificate in school social work. Some people will ask, well, why do I want a school social work graduate certificate and a license? The reason we offer both is because Arkansas and Mississippi do not have a license in school social work. And if you choose to move to one of those bordering states with a certificate, the likelihood of you being hired in the schools there's a higher likelihood because you have knowledge and information, and there's no licensure in that state. So there's no reciprocity that can occur because they have no license. But with a certificate, you're carrying knowledge and information with you that makes you more marketable. And we'll talk a little bit more about reciprocity in just a second to other states. So the admission requirements for post-MSW are fairly similar. MSW degree from from an accredited school, have 1 year post-master's experience. So we do ask that MSWs who just recently graduated, that you have at least 1 year post-MSW experience before you come back and reapply to the graduate school for the graduate school admissions for the certificate program. It's the same requirements for the academic programming. If the student has been out of their MSW degree program for more than 5 years, we will ask them to complete an experiential learning credit process so that we can utilize that for their readmissions as part of their programming. Also, if somebody has been in the field for an extended period of time, their field experience can't count for that. So we will let them do what we call an experiential learning credit portfolio to count towards some of their 12 credit hours because their field experience can't count. But the same process with the TEP, same process with the school social work application. We do require the 3 letters of recommendation because they've been in the field. They do have to do the candidacy form. Everything else is exactly the same, except for that 1-year post-MSW requirement. So retention requirements and graduation requirements, we do have the same process as the master social work program. You must maintain an average B average. We also, students may earn no more than 3 credit hours of C-, C+, or C in order to stay in the program. So once you're licensed, a lot of people will ask, well, how do I maintain the licensure? Is it similar to an LCSW or an LMSW? So a licensed school social worker does have to maintain their license over time. They do have to have continuing credit hours in order to maintain the license. When you start off as a licensed school social worker in the state of Tennessee, you start off as what they call an apprentice special groups, and you stay on an apprentice level for the first 3 years. So in order to get off an apprentice level, you actually have to work in a school district for 3 straight years under another licensed clinician. And then after the 3rd year, you actually submit your license to the state with proof that you've been working consecutively for 3 years. And then you get your, you get off a provisional license and into a full 488 school social work K-12 license. You do have to upload CEUs, they actually call them PDPs, into a system that they call T-Encompass. You renew your license every 6 years. You have to have 10 contact hours every year. So basically you submit 60 contact hours every 6 years into the system to renew your license. So it's not too bad. And most of your licensure requirements for your LMSW or your LCSW can count towards your licensed school social work. So you can kind of double dip on those. So some people will ask, well, if I get my Tennessee school social work license and I move to Colorado, can I get reciprocity? We cannot guarantee that because every state Department of Education is different and no 2 DOEs are the same. What we encourage you to do is, if you think you're going to move from Tennessee to another state, is to contact that state Department of Education and ask what those requirements are and if they would support reciprocity. What we do say is one of the reasons we offer the school social work certificate is because we can't guarantee reciprocity, but a school social work certificate can follow you anywhere, okay? Now, of the 50 states, only 35 states in the United States identify school social work as a licensed process. So I will tell you, though, we have had a student that left Tennessee and went to Colorado, and the student called me and said, "Thank you so much. You made me take that FBA class, and I actually got reciprocity because that is a mandated requirement in Colorado. And I was able to show in the syllabus and the course that I took that you required that. And so I was able to get hired in Colorado. But we can't guarantee that for every state. So that if you think you're going to move from Tennessee to another state, the best thing to do is call that state DOE and ask what the requirements are. So what's your next steps to apply to the graduate school for a graduate certificate in school social work? Whether you're a current MSW student or a post-MSW student, just make sure if you're a post-MSW student that you wait that 1 year post-MSW before you apply. And here are just some additional references and resources related to school social work practice. Are there any questions about the school social work graduate certificate?
The school social work graduate certificate is also offered through Global. All of the courses are available online.
All right. Well, we recorded tonight's session. We also will post these PowerPoint slides we'll make the couple of corrections Dr. Susan Neely Barnes mentioned to make sure that a couple of those courses that have shifted numbers are updated, but we will also post this recording. So if you want to go back and listen to it, or if you have specific questions, you'll have our contact information and can ask those questions. But we appreciate you attending tonight, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any other burning questions you'd like to ask. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.